Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Graham Sibbald Podcast. My name's Jorja, and I am your host. On this week's episode, we're going to be speaking to another member of the Graham Sibbald team and talk about the ongoing pandemic and the effect it's had on the high street and the commercial property market. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the Graham Sibbald Podcast. Welcome to the Graham Sibbald Podcast. We are here today with Keith Waters, who is a commercial agent and partner at Graham Sibbald, based within the firm's Edinburgh office. How are you today, Keith?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. So can you tell us a little bit about your role within Graham Sibbald?
Yeah, so I'm in the agency department, which involves the buying and selling and leasing of all sort of commercial properties across all sectors, so office, industrial, retail, and then head that up for the overall firm.
Great. So what was the commercial property market like in late 2019 to early 2020, pre-lockdown?
Yeah, I think we would say that the market in general is functioning pretty well across all sectors. There was obviously issues around the high street and retail. And what we've seen is that that's now been almost put into fast forward by the lockdown, that the problems in the high street retail have kind of been exacerbated by what's happened. So that's kind of been a big shift in there. But generally speaking, the market was functioning pretty well pre-lockdown.
Okay, great. And do you expect to see an increase in the number of office spaces available to let now that many businesses have adapted to staff from working from home?
Yeah, I think the simple answer is yes, but I suppose in Edinburgh we've not necessarily seen that yet, and I think a lot of businesses will now be looking at that with staff maybe looking to work from home for certainly part of the week going forward. But I think we've also, I think some people still enjoy coming into the office where they can, and I do think that some of the firms where they can afford to do so might actually give staff extra space. So what you might actually see is, in some circumstances, office occupiers might take more space to allow for more social distancing within the office environment going forward. So I think that will be something that we see happening, and it's just a case of when.
That's really interesting. And what do you think is next for the commercial property market as the coronavirus pandemic continues?
Well, I think what we're now seeing is a lot of shift into investment into industrial properties. So obviously that's a strong sector anyway, but what we've seen is a lot of institutional money coming in and buying in industrial assets, particularly in Edinburgh. So we're seeing rents on the rise and yields lowering, which means significant jumps in value for price there, and take up of industrial in general has been pretty strong. So I think when the stats come out at the end of this year, it will be seen as a pretty good year for industrial.
Could you elaborate on what's happening outside retail, outside of the high street?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is a lot of activity with the discount sector. So the likes of B&M Bargains and Home Bargains coming in and taking on more units and even looking to buy into existing out-of-town retail outlets. We've seen continued activity in the convenience store sector. So requirements out for the likes of Sainsbury's, Tesco, Co-op, and Scotmid. Whilst I guess as a slightly alternative sector, lots of activity continuing in drive-throughs and a push towards creating more and strong investor sentiment into buying drive-throughs, as they're seen as being essentially lockdown proof and can trade regardless of what's going on, and are performing well in what is a tough market.
So would you say that's a positive that's come out of coronavirus potentially?
Well, I don't know if it's a positive. I guess it's just that these, I guess it's shown that these types of asset are, pretty resilient, and obviously probably a defensive purchase for an investor. But what it'll do is drive up the value of these types of assets. So clearly, if you own these properties, there will be increasing in value.
And are there any interesting properties that you're marketing at the moment?
Yeah, we've currently got a Burger King investment in Irvine on the market, which is let on a relatively long lease, having just been regeared. So if you contact my colleague in Glasgow, Mark Gillis, he would give more details on the website. We're also going to be bringing out just shortly an office investment at Greenside House in Edinburgh, which is close to the St James Centre, which would offers essentially short-term income now with the opportunity to convert this building into serviced apartments in the future. So again, quite an interesting purchase, again, in what is currently a tough sector in terms of hospitality, but we see that Edinburgh is going to be resilient beyond the pandemic, and this could be quite an interesting opportunity for an investor.
And obviously it's been quite an uncertain time, this 2020. So do you have any advice for people looking to sell a commercial property in the next coming weeks or months?
Well, I guess the best advice is to obviously come to Graham Sibbald, but I think what we're seeing now is actually a bit more on online marketing, so a bigger push towards videos, using drone footage, and making sure your online offering in terms of selling a property is as good as it can be, because clearly it's difficult for everyone to actually travel to go and look at properties. I think certainly we're going to be pushing for doing more videos, and I think that's going to be useful it'll make our jobs easier, but it'll also be, clients will also get better results, I think, from doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Keith. It's been so interesting to hear about the effects of retail and what Graham Sibbald are doing to overcome all the issues of the pandemic. So thank you so much for your time today. Big thanks again to Keith for his time today. If you have any questions or would like to find out more, please go to www.g-s.co.uk. Thank you for joining us today, and stay safe.